Hello, my name is Joshua Mugabi. I welcome you to Biology Lights. And in this session, we are going to talk about heredity. A plant with red flowers is crossed with a white-flowered plant of the same species. All the seeds, when grown, produce plants with red flowers. Assuming that the flower color is controlled by a single pair of alleles, which allele is dominant and which is recessive? The allele for red color flowers must be dominant if no white flower appears in the first generation. If a dominant allele for tall plants is represented by the letter D, what letter should represent the corresponding recessive allele? The recessive allele corresponding to capital D is small d. In cats, the allele capital A's for short fur is dominant to allele small a's for long fur. Part A. What is the genotype of a true breeding long-furred cat? A true breeding long-furred cat has the genotype small a small s. In cats, the allele capital A's for short fur is dominant to the allele small a's for long fur. Part B. What is the phenotype of a cat with the genotype capital A's small a's? The capital A small a's genotype will produce a short-furred phenotype. In cats, the allele capital A's for short fur is dominant to allele small a's for long fur. Part C. In an capital A small a's genotype, which allele is expressed in the phenotype? In a capital A small a's genotype, the dominant allele capital A's will be expressed. In cats, the allele capital A's for short fur is dominant to the allele small a's for long fur. Part D. Which of the following genotype is Roman 1, heterozygous, Roman 2, homozygous dominant, capital A's, capital A's, capital A's, small a's, small a's, small a's. Part 1. Capital A small s is heterozygous. Capital S is homozygous dominant. In rabbits, assume that the dominant allele, capital B, produces black fur. The allele, small b, for white fur is recessive to capital B. Part A. What color fur will each of the following rabbits have? The genotype, rabbit 1 is capital B, rabbit 2, capital B small b, rabbit 3, small b capital B, and rabbit 4, small b small b. Rabbit 1, capital B will be black. Rabbit 2 and 3, capital B small b or small b capital B, will be black. And rabbit 4, small b, will be white. Which of them will breed true? Rabbit 1, capital B, and 4, small b, will breed true. Part C. Which rabbits are homozygous for coat color? Rabbit 1, capital B, and rabbit 4, small b, are homozygous for coat color. Part E. If rabbits 2 and 3 are interbred and produce several litters, totaling 48 babies, how many white babies would be predicted by the laws of genetics? If the heterozygous rabbits, capital B small b, are mated, you would expect a ratio approximating to 3 black to 1 white baby. For example, 36 black and 12 white. Part E. If rabbits 3 and 4 are mated together on several occasions and have 50 babies altogether, how many of their babies would you expect to be black? Rabbit 4 contributes only recessive alleles, so approximately 50% of the babies should be black and 50% should be white. That is 25 of each. The alleles controlling A, B, O blood groups are given. The letter capital I exponent A, that is group A, capital I exponent B, that is group B, and small I, that is group O. On the drawings below, write in the alleles on the chromosomes for each of the blood groups. Part of group A has been done for you. Group A, allele A, allele A. O, allele A, and I. Group B, allele B, allele B, O, allele B, and I. Group AB, allele A and allele B. Group O, I and I. In short-horn cattle, the coat color red or white are controlled by a single pair of alleles. A calf which receives the allele for red coat from its mother and the allele for white coat from its father is called a roan. It has an equal number of red and white hairs in its coat. Part A. Is this an example of codominancy or of incomplete dominancy? The roan calf exhibits codominancy of the two alleles. In short-horn cattle, the coat colors red or white are controlled by a single pair of alleles. A calf which receives allele for red coat from its mother and allele for white coat from its father is called a roan. It has an equal number of red and white hairs in its coat. Part B. It's a codominancy. Give a reason for your answer. Each allele is fully expressed. That is, neither allele is dominant. Give one example of codominancy in humans. The A, B, O blood groups are examples of the codominancy of the allele A and allele B. Give one example of incomplete dominancy in human. Sickle cell anemia is an example of incomplete dominancy. The recessive allele is partially expressed in the heterozygous. Give 3 examples of human disorders which are caused by the action of a single pair of alleles. In each case, say whether the harmful allele is dominant or recessive to the non-harmful allele. Hemophilia, recessive. Albinism, recessive. Phenylketonuria, recessive. Red-green color blindness, recessive. Sickle cell anemia, partially recessive. In humans, melanins or phemelanins is determined by a pair of sex chromosomes called X and Y. What is the genotype for males? Part B. What is the genotype for females? Part A. The male genotype is XY. And part B, the female genotype is XX. Part A. In humans, is it the sperm or the ovum which determines the sex of the offspring? Part B. Give a reason for your answer. Part A. The sperm determines the sex of the offspring. And part B. All the ova contain an X chromosome. Half the sperm carry an X chromosome and half carry a Y chromosome. In fruit flies, the allele small n for ebony or black body is recessive to allele capital N for normal gray body. Part A. Complete the Punnett square for a cross between normal, that is gray-bodied, flies, which are heterozygous for this allele. That is capital N, small n, genotypes. We shall have the gametes N, capital N, small n, and capital N, small n. Then we shall have the offspring, capital N, capital N, capital N, small n, capital N, small n, and small n, small n. Part B. State the expected proportion of normal and ebony-bodied flies in a large sample of offsprings. The expected ratio of phenotypes would be approximately 3 normal to 1 aberrant. Part C. State the proportion of the normal phenotypes which would be true breeding. On average, 1/3 of the normal phenotypes would be true breeding, that is capital N, capital N. When a particular gene is said to be sex-linked, on which chromosome is that gene usually present? A sex-linked gene is usually carried on the X chromosome and is absent from the Y chromosome. The genetic disorder phenylketonuria, PKU, is caused by a recessive allele, N. The family tree below shows the incidence of the disease over 3 generations. Part A. What can you deduce about the genotypes of the parents? Both grandparents must be heterozygous, that is capital N, small n. Part B. Both grandparents must be heterozygous, capital N, small n. Explain your reasoning. If either grandparent was homozygous, capital N, the N allele would be dominant in the offspring. The PKU allele would not be expressed, and none of their children would be affected. Part C. What is the genotype of Jane's husband? Jane's husband must be heterozygous, capital N, small n. Jenny's husband must be heterozygous, capital N, small n. Explain your reasoning. If he were homozygous, capital N, all his offsprings would receive a dominant allele, and none could exhibit PKU. Part E. What are the chances that Peter is the carrier of the PKU allele that resulted in his having an affected son? there is a 50% chance that Peter has inherited a recessive Pku allele from his parents. This would make him a carrier. Part F. If gene had been normal, what are the possible genotypes of the grandparents? If gene had been normal, the grandparents' genotype could be: Part 1, both capital N small n, or Part 2, one capital N and one capital N small n. They could not both have been capital N, or gene would also have been capital N, and could not have had an affected child. Part E. Is it possible that the allele for Pku is sex-linked? If the allele for Pku was sex-linked, the grandparents could not have had an affected daughter. One form of color blindness is a sex-linked inherited condition controlled by a recessive allele. Use the symbol X and Y for the sex chromosomes, and capital N and small n for the alleles for normal or defective color vision to show the genotype of Part A, a normal male; Part B, a colorblind male; Part C, a normal non-carrier female; Part D, colorblind female; and Part E, a normal carrier female. Part A, a normal male, X and Y. Part B, colorblind male, X small n y. Part C, normal non-carrier female, X capital N, X capital N. D, a colorblind female, X small n, X small n. Part E, a normal carrier female, X capital N, X small n. Use the genotypes you have written for your answer to question above to show the chances of a son being colorblind, resulting from a marriage between a normal man and a carrier woman. The chances are 1-to-1 that a boy from this marriage will be colorblind. Use the genotypes you have written for your answer to question above to show the chances of a daughter being a carrier, resulting from a marriage between a normal man and a carrier woman. The chances of a carrier daughter are also 1:1. Hello friends, thank you very much for participating in Biology Lives. I encourage you to subscribe.